Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. Today we are reviewing Dear Hannah by Zoje Stage. So the way we do it here, I'll read the synopsis just to give us a little bit of a refresher. I'll go through the story along with my own commentary. So there will be spoilers ahead. Also, we don't really do trigger warnings here, so you might want to research those independently if that means something to you. So now hand, if you please, the book. Being a little aggressive today. Thank you, hand. All right, so here is our cover. Some things you never outgrow. Hannah is no stranger to dark thoughts. As a young child, she tried to murder her own mother, but that was more than 16 years ago. And extensive therapy and writing letters to her younger brother has since curbed those nasty tendencies. Now 24, Hannah is living an outwardly normal life of domestic content. Married to a real estate agent, Jacob, she's also stepmother to his teenage daughter, Joelle. They live in a beautiful home, and Hannah loves her career as a phlebotomist, a job perfectly suited to her occasional need to hurt people. But when Joelle begins to change in ways that don't suit Hannah's purposes, her carefully planned existence threatens to come apart. With life slipping out of her control, Hannah reverts to old habits, determined to manipulate the events and people around her. And the only thing worse than a baby sociopath is a fully grown one. With its dark humor and chillingly seductive protagonist, Dear Hannah is a standalone sequel sure to thrill returning and new readers alike. So, this could be, like it said, you could read this as a standalone. You could read them together. You could honestly read them in any order. However, if you have not read Baby Teeth, I highly recommend that you do so because it's a very good book. And that got me out of like a years long reading slump. So anyway, Hannah was bad as a kid, and I have no hope that she's going to be any better as an adult. That may not seem fair, but just stay with me. So everybody, grab a drink. Hydration is important, and let's get started. To start, we just kind of get some background, some character development, how Hannah and Jacob met each other through her job as a phlebotomist at a lab. And we also learn that Jacob's first wife, Rachel, passed away. Perfect for Hannah. Also here we do get correspondence in the way of their letters between Hannah and her younger brother Gustav, or Goose as she affectionately calls him. We won't really get too much into the letters since it's mainly them discussing events that have already occurred. So won't be getting too much into that and telling each other about their respective days, and Hannah telling her little brother, who is 13, adult level problems that we definitely shouldn't be telling her little brother about. Anyway, so we have our first clue that Hannah has not changed at all. She tells Jacob that she's pregnant. Joyful occasion, right? Maybe not. So in a letter to Goose, she tells him she's going to lose said pregnancy. And she's really just doing this just to get attention from her husband because he's doing things alone that whenever they were first together, they used to do things together. Running is a thing that they used to do together. Now, I was a newlywed once too. We've been married 16 years now. Just because he wants to do something without you, that does not mean that he doesn't want to be around you or that he doesn't love you anymore. You can do things independently of each other. We were together probably 10 years before we ever spent a night apart from each other. So anyway, so Hannah, of course, is feeling like, well, she's not the center of attention, and she doesn't like that. And the synopsis kind of made it seem that Joelle, the stepdaughter, was like turning into maybe another Hannah, but it's really just, I guess from Hannah's perspective, all of this was problematic. It's just normal teenager, growing up stuff, spending less time at home. She wants to spend time with her friends. Her tastes are changing, and she's just getting older. And Hannah says she's dragging Jacob with her. That's not a direct quote. I'm paraphrasing. But Hannah's being a little pretentious here and has created this itinerary of her life in her head and didn't tell anyone about the itinerary, and now she's mad nobody's following it. Anyway, so Hannah's plan to miscarry is about to happen. She's getting ready to start her period, so she's going to use that as a way to miscarry this non-existent pregnancy. So she's on the toilet Jacob comes upstairs, and Hannah's acting devastated, losing again this non-existent pregnancy. And he's still not coddling her like she thought he would. And Jacob is, trying to do his best, and he's like, it's okay, we can try again. So he wants to try again, and they had evidently already discussed not having children, and he doesn't want to do that. So, oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to build a palm frond tree. That's not the saying, but it's funnier. We get that courtesy of Robert Verdi from Surprised by Design, showing my age with that one. That was a home renovation show that I used to watch when I was in like high school, where somebody would leave and then they would come in and make over a room. And then when the person would come back, they would surprise them with this made over room. Why do you need a bigger cage? What arts and crafts supplies? Oh. You know what? I'll see what I can do. So based on their correspondences through their letters, we can also see Goose is probably just as bad as Hanna. Something in the water at Alex and Suzette's house, I guess. I don't know. And Hanna does decide she doesn't want to do the baby thing, which is great for that potential child, and also for Hanna. However, plot twist. Joelle tells Hanna she's pregnant. And Joelle is, I think at this point, she's 15, maybe 16. And so how's Hanna going to contend with being a grandma? Who knows? So Joelle wants Hanna to tell her dad. And I guess Joelle is assuming that he'll be less mad if it comes from Hanna. But Hanna just doesn't want to tell him yet. And they decide to go through an option. I say an option because Hanna only talked about one alternative and assumed that that's what Joelle would do because that's what she would do. Well, spoiler alert number 2, Joelle's not going to do that. She's not going to do what Hanna wants her to, so Joelle and Boyd, the boyfriend, have decided to get married instead. Now, earlier, Jacob had seen a picture of a fancy dress on Joelle's phone and had just assumed she was looking at prom dresses, but not getting ready for prom, daddy-o. So they're having dinner together. Joelle and Boyd tell Jacob that they're pregnant. I say there because it takes 2 to tango. And also, here's a PSA. We got here because Boyd didn't want to use a condom because they were uncomfortable. If he ever says that he can't use a condom because they're uncomfortable or really it won't fit or really any other reason, leave, because that ain't true. You can put one of them things, stretch one of them things over your head and it don't break. And you know what else is uncomfortable, Boyd? Parenthood. Back to the review. So they're having a discussion. They decide they want to have a sit down, talk to Boyd's parents, kind of see what page everyone is on. Hanna also makes a blanket statement that Jacob agreed that an abortion was best. Jacob never said that. And that was also how he found out that Hanna already knew that Joelle was pregnant and didn't tell him. But she didn't, she didn't tell him because she wanted to give Joelle time to make the decision, aka the decision that Hanna wanted her to make, not the one that Joelle wants to make. Anyway, so Hanna didn't want Joelle to have this baby because then she wouldn't be the center of attention, because babies take up a lot of time, a lot of care, and a lot of attention, and that just is how it is. So after this, Hanna and Joelle spend the day together. While Hannah's getting a few groceries, she gets the idea of slipping Joelle an abortion pill without her knowing. Somehow I was hoping that Hanna would maybe, just maybe, make a turnaround on this, but no, she's still a horrible Hanna. Jacob brings up the suggestion that he and Hanna raise this baby and maybe just outright adopt it. Hanna does not like that at all. Also, them adopting this kid's not a good decision. Not just for this kid's sake, and with Hanna being awful and all this, but if I were in this position, I would not want that either. So she opens up a little to Jacob about why she doesn't want to be a mother, tells him about her parents sending her away to boarding school, not telling him it was because she tried to kill her mother at age 7. She also tampered with her mother's medication because she thought it would cause her to die, but it was just managing the symptoms of her mother's Crohn's disease. And the fact that Hanna's saying she needs to get the upper hand here says a lot about her as a person. She became a phlebotomist, like in the synopsis outlined, just so that she can hurt people. So there's a little more clarity for you. Hanna does order the abortion pills online, and she's hopeful after she doses them that Joelle will be relieved. I think Joelle would probably be devastated because obviously she wants this baby. And the fact that Hanna doesn't care about anyone else, what they're feeling, and what they want, that to me is the most infuriating. I am a very empathetic person, and to just not take someone else's feelings into consideration, that is just a complete foreign concept to me. Also, I wish I was a psychiatrist so that I could diagnose what might be going on with her, but I don't know how to do any of that, so moving on. So she's decided to serve Joelle these pills in some garlicky hummus to cover up the bitterness, because when you crush tablets, they can sometimes come out bitter. On a side note to the Stark story we're reading, I actually really love hummus, but not the chocolate hummus. That was a mistake and an abomination. When were you ever a chef? I don't think Gordon Ramsay would hire you as head chef at his Las Vegas restaurant. Because you have to have a refined palate to do that. I have seen you eat cigarette butts and balls of hair. I am absolutely not letting you cook anything for me. We're moving on. And I'm not gonna lie, my heart was actually pounding while I was reading this dinner scene, but she didn't go through with it. She dropped the plate. Not because she felt bad or changed her mind, she just decided slipping him to her in front of the whole family probably wasn't a good idea. So later, Hanna brings up again to Jacob about Joelle ending the pregnancy. Now, Jacob isn't against that necessarily, but Joelle has made the decision to have her baby, and he's going to support her in that decision. So he also keeps bringing up Rachel, his first wife, and what Rachel would do. What would Rachel have done? And as horrible of a person Hanna is, it's really not fair to keep comparing her to Rachel, because this is not the first time that he's done that. So Hanna decides she's going to change tactics. She's going to see if she can break Boyd and Joelle up so that Joelle makes the decision that Hanna wants her to. Terminates the pregnancy because the window of time for termination is closing at this point. So Hanna starts by looking through social media profiles. This is absolutely why your social media profiles should all be set to private. Nobody else needs to be seeing that but you. And she just wants to see what kind of dirt can she dig up on Boyd and maybe his family. And Hanna seems to have dug up some dirt. The first thing she mentions is vaping. Girl, what are you going to do with that? That's like if somebody called my supervisor to tell her that I smoke. A, she knows that. And B, as long as I'm not doing it at my desk or on the facility grounds, nobody cares. Let that go. Now, she also does discover that Boyd and his family are hunters, something that Hanna doesn't like. And she hates that Boyd could be a killer. And that's rich coming from Little Miss tried to murder her own mother. So Hanna has just based on that decided they're not good people because of the hunting culture. But at least here she's self-aware enough to acknowledge takes one to know one. And she talks about buying a gun now. And knowing what I know of Hanna, she don't need that. So what Hanna does is she has used Photoshop to fabricate some kind of picture of Boyd in an attempt to break the pair up. She walks down the street, drops it in the mailbox outside of the post office, wears gloves, did her best just to not be seen, What it is, no idea. Hanna didn't describe it, and it was my prediction that she was just going to mail something to her own house, but I was wrong. Shocking, I know. Hanna mailed it to the school. And Joelle and Boyd both attend the same school. And what it was she took one of Boyd's hunting photos of him holding a gun and has poorly photoshopped it in front of a bunch of kids to make it look like a school. School's been canceled, Boyd's been suspended, and of course police are involved. Joelle lets Hanna and Jacob know because, of course, when Jacob finds out about this, he's very upset. Hannah's faking upset because she knows it's not real. And Joelle assures them that the only real part of that is the picture of Boyd with his gun. And Jacob isn't thrilled to know that Boyd owns a gun, and this gun is a hunting rifle. Now, I grew up in Appalachia. Something like that would not really be a huge shock or a deal breaker for most people there because there's lots of hunters there, but Jacob was not okay with the presence of the gun. And Hanna got what she wanted. Discord has been sown. So Jacob and Hanna are going to have Boyd over just to have a little talk. Hanna thinks hunters are bad and talks about orphaned fawns. Now, a true hunter would not a deer or really any other animal outside of hunting season because the hunting seasons are set up so that mamas should not have babies. So that way we are not orphaning a bunch of baby animals. Hanna's plan, she wants to try to exploit some of Boyd's faults as she perceives them to be. And Jacob also is a real estate agent. He also does photography as a hobby, and she talks about his style being a little more abstract, but she did find some pictures that he had taken of her, and she sits for him all the time, but she didn't like these. She said that they were dark, and she used the words vampiric and demonic to describe them, and said that he made her look ugly. So, and Hanna also talks about what she calls her other self, which manifests as a woman during the Salem witch trials. So now it's time for Boyd to come in, and he brought Ashley with him. I think Ashley was his mom. I didn't make a note of her earlier because I didn't think we'd ever see her again, but I'm pretty sure that's his mom. And this goes about as well as you would think it did. Jacob says that he doesn't want Joelle or a baby around, but does acknowledge that hunting is a normal activity. Great. Hanna sees Ashley differently, and now that from whenever they had spoken earlier, I guess she saw her as not much of a threat to Hannah's perceived situation, but she feels differently now after this talk has occurred. And they all know what side they're on, and Hanna tried to figure it out. She wants Boyd's family to not want to associate with them, so her plan is to just be kind of snooty and rude. And looks like that may be working because this talk is about to devolve. It doesn't devolve into a free-for-all, but Hanna brings up an abortion again, and no one but her wants that. Girl, let it go. Ashley did overstep a little bit because she was trying to speak for both Boyd and Joelle. Now, Boyd is her son. Absolutely, she can speak for him. Joelle is not her daughter, so she does not speak for Joelle. Now, during this, it's a really good monologue, actually. Jacob gave Boyd and Joelle a good reality check. Now, Ashley didn't like anything he had to say, but he made some good points, and it was really just about being a parent is tough. And both of you are very young, and if you're going to do this, it's going to be hard. And it was a great monologue, really. So everyone is left, and Hanna says she knows what she needs to do now. Now, before they leave, Ashley did make her feelings known when it was just the three of them, just the three adults in the situation. She said pretty much, I don't like you guys don't like us. I don't hold that against Joelle, so don't hold that against my son. And honestly, that's fair. So we did have a correspondence between Hanna and Goose, and they're discussing the ways that Hanna could or otherwise get rid of Ashley because that is her plan now. And it's gone so far that Hanna started Ashley. She took time off work to Ashley to get the routine down so she can figure out a good time to her. Now, of course, to do this takes up a lot of her time, so Hanna has been neglecting a lot of household duties, and while yes, Jacob can help out, he can take Joelle to doctor appointments and help clean up and such, Hanna shouldn't be neglecting her family because she's trying to plan a either. So while they're at dinner, Hannah's making small talk with Boyd while Joelle and Jacob go to reload their plates. Seems normal, but nothing is normal with Hanna, and I think she's trying to figure out if there's any cracks in this relationship that she can try to exploit. So Joelle and Boyd float this idea of them living together in the basement apartment because apparently this house is enormous. They have a top floor and a second floor and then like a basement apartment. So this house is massive, evidently. I would not want a house that big. That's way too much to clean. But I guess if they're making that much that they have a house like this, they can afford a maid. So now that Hanna feels like they've chosen a side, but I don't think that they've really picked a side necessarily. There are just several family members living at Boyd's house. It's like him and his parents and his sisters and her sister's kids. There's just a lot of people there, and I think they just liked the idea of having a place that was less populated. So after a little talk, a little discussion, Hanna and Jacob agree that Boyd could move in only if Joelle got a job, because Boyd is also going to get a part-time job. Joelle, this manifests as a babysitting gig for Boyd's sister, who is also a teen mom and also has her several children at this point. Jacob says that at some point he's going to need to tell his parents, Joelle's natural biological grandparents, and that brings to mind, will Hanna tell her parents? I mean, they're going to find out one way or another, so Jacob asked her and she straight up said no. Hanna is just terrified that her parents would spill everything to Jacob, including what her stay at Marcia's was really about, and to not let her near the baby. I don't know what that's about. Jacob says it might be a good chance to reconcile. Hanna doesn't want to reconcile and says that they hate her. And the choice to reconcile or not really is Hannah's to make, but I think she just doesn't want her skeletons falling out of the closet in front of everybody. That being said, I think they do have some reason to dislike her because she did try to kill her mother. So her mother at least probably has some good reason. And Goose has some of the same problems as Hanna based on what we're reading in their letters to each other. So I don't know if there's any hope for either one of them at this point. So Hanna, Jacob, all of them, the whole crew, Hanna, Jacob, Boyd, Joelle, and Ashley, they're all there getting the basement apartment ready, getting stuff moved in, working together, normal kind of stuff. And I don't think that Hanna has abandoned her idea of Ashley yet, but she did offer Ashley something to drink, and I bet you dollars to donuts she put something in it, and spoiler alert, she's going to do just that. She proceeds to put antifreeze in Ashley's root beer. Girl, it ain't worth it. It just ain't worth it. So now they have gotten invited to a cookout at Boyd's. Apparently that's something that they all like to do. And Joelle, for whatever reason, does not want them to go. Hanna doesn't want to go either. And Jacob's like, no, they're extending an olive branch. We're going to go. So they go. Hanna does mention some memories that she hides under a blanket so she doesn't have to think about them, and if they hadn't happened, maybe she'd still have a relationship with her parents, or at least her dad, because in baby teeth, Hanna loved her dad, but not her mom, and we've all had some childhood experiences growing up, but we don't have time to unpack all that. So while they're at this cookout, one of the relatives has like a small dog with her, and it keeps growling at Hanna, like, Porky knows there's something up with her. Pray tell, why did this dog bark at you? Why were you coming in the window? You know what that's called? Breaking and entering. You would have ended up in a box buried in the backyard with felony B&E written on it. Back to the review. So Hanna at this cookout also brings up maybe throwing Joelle a baby shower. And it appears Boyd's family have already started planning a baby shower without looping Hanna in. And also, as far as I'm aware, the mom-to-be's family are usually the ones that plan the baby shower. At least that's how we did it in my respective families. But not looping Hanna in and blindsiding her like this, that's not fair to her, even though she does only want to use the baby shower to further Ashley. But Hanna, yeah, that she's just the stepmom, but she's the only mom that Joelle's got, and leaving her out, that was something that I think that Ashley did on purpose. So Hanna then involved Joelle, and that's not fair to Joelle because Joelle's just a kid. She didn't ask to be here. So Ashley and Hanna are getting defensive at each other. Ashley brings up that Hanna had suggested terminating the pregnancy, and that goes about as well as you could imagine. So Hanna decides, you know what, I'm going to pretend to show everybody how I'm the bigger person, and she backs down and just starts helping clear some of the empty dishes away, taking them inside. And while she's in the kitchen, she comes to this conclusion, this is all Joelle's fault. Is she going to spin this on Joelle's? She's going to focus on her now? She said that she was trying to Ashley for Joelle and that she should bear some of the responsibility. She's going to try and frame Joelle for part of this if she gets caught. I don't know. Hanna has also been seeing her other self in her throat. So while she's retreated to the bathroom, she checks the mirror to see if she can see the fingers coming out of there. And I don't think this is like an MPD or DID thing. I think it's just a device that Hanna has created to keep her dark thoughts under control, is kind of like imagining them as something separate from herself. So Jacob comes to retrieve Hanna from the bathroom because evidently she'd been in there for a while. And then after, their polite goodbyes, thank you for having us, and blah, 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 much to Hannah's relief, they finally leave. Now, I do have a little bit of a prediction here that I put in my notes. Hanna is slipping into a delusion because she's not feeling well, and I think that's more just because she has worked herself up into a frenzy. And she thinks that Ashley may have tried to put her as revenge, and now they're in some perceived competition to see who can kill the other one first. Also, side note, we really don't go too deep into Hanna and Goose's letters because it's, again, mostly stuff that we've already talked about. But something we didn't talk about is that Hannah's manager had evidently pulled her to the side after a couple bundled draws. Hannah's manager says that she's been off for a while now. So Hannah's carefully crafted aura isn't as bulletproof as she'd like to think it is, I think. Now, she, of course, does my stepdaughter's going to be a teen mom, things are all out of my control, and her manager does understand, but is like, you need to get it together. What chaos would that create if Hanna got fired? Hanna decides she's going to call in sick, but she felt like her boss didn't believe her, which, of course, she's not really sick. And I'm also beginning to think that Hanna is a lot more readable than she thinks she is, because Jacob has also noticed a change in her behavior, and he says that she's being distant. She says, I'm not feeling well. I'm working something out with Goose, even though there is no thing to work out with Goose. And Jacob pretty much told her she's not behaving normally. Translation, she's not getting her way and is now throwing a tantrum. I used to have an employee under me who did that. Jacob suggests, are you depressed? She entertains that idea. I can imagine being depressed in this situation. The only difference is I wouldn't be saying that just to manipulate everybody around me into doing what they want them to do. So Jacob does suggest, hey, maybe you should see a therapist. And Hanna kind of begrudgingly agrees, but there's a specific therapist that she wants to see, Beatrix Yamamoto, her therapist from Baby Teeth when she was little. Now, Hanna does tell us that she was upset with Dr. Yamamoto because it was actually her who recommended Marsha's to her parents, and she felt very betrayed by that. The very same Marsha's that she keeps calling a boarding school. So she looks up Dr. Yamamoto, maybe see if her office is still even open or if she can get an appointment. Hanna decides to get ready to go for a run, but before she does, she wants to go spy on Boyd and Joelle in their basement apartment. I mean, she doesn't see them doing much. She does make some inferences about their relationship because Boyd was asleep on the couch. That means absolutely nothing. When I can't sleep, I do go lie down on the couch. And one of these days, I'd like to get a Murphy bed installed downstairs so that I can not sleep in relative comfort. I don't think you have enough room in there for a Murphy bed. Yes, you've said that it was too small. Yes, you've mentioned the arts and crafts supplies. No, I have not forgotten. If you guys see any bird cages on Facebook Marketplace, let me know. So Hanna goes on her run, and she just wants to see maybe if she can run by Dr. Yamamoto's office, which is apparently close by. Like, how small is this town that Hanna's life is so compartmentalized and closed in? So she ends up finding the office, and it is still operating. So Hanna does try to sneak away before she gets seen, but Dr. Yamamoto sees her and recognizes her. So they do talk a little bit. Hanna spends almost the entire time trying to make excuses to get up and leave, and then eventually she's just like, I've made a horrible mistake. She goes to leave, but she does make an appointment. But is she going to go? Who knows? So now Joelle she wants to practice driving because, again, she's 16. So they're leaving, and Hanna sees the antifreeze. At this point, I would like to think she'd given up trying to on anyone. But she does, while they're driving, ask about Boyd sleeping on the couch. It was just because Joelle is a light sleeper, and he came in when she was already asleep and did not want to wake her up. Those two people always marry each other. Like, I can sleep through anything. Any little sound that occurs, my husband wakes up. So Joelle does ask Hanna if she's okay, and asks how Goose is doing since Jacob said he was going through it, even though the it does not exist. And Hanna didn't like that Jacob and Joelle had talked about her, but Hanna, honey, they're your family. Of course they're talking about you. I bet my family talks about me. I mean, I'm my mother's favorite child, so why wouldn't she? I'm just kidding. She loves us both equally. On my list of things that I love, you are at the bottom of it. Anyhow, Hanna suggests watching a movie, a superhero movie. Joelle thinks that's a great idea. I want to believe Hanna just wants to get to know this new version of Joelle and get to know Boyd, but we all know that ain't true. Hanna, they had them all watching like foreign films, and when Boyd came into the picture was when the movies changed to like more mainstream superhero kind of stuff. Now, I love a good piece of foreign cinema too, but there's also nothing wrong with watching Critters or Tropic Thunder. So, we all know that so she's agreed to do this, and we all know that Hanna doesn't do anything without some kind of a motive. And Joelle accidentally gave Hanna an opening. Joelle asked about the baby shower and if it hurt her feelings. And Hanna answered someone honestly and truthfully for once and said that yes, it did. And then Joelle gives Hanna this. I know, I do too. That's not why I said yes to Boyd's mom. It's just, it seems important to stay on her good side. Like she has a way of making me feel like I'm going to do something wrong. She always seems really nice, but I know how it's been for Boyd. She acts like she trusts him, but she really doesn't. She wants to have a say in everything, so when she offered with the baby shower, I just thought it was easiest to say yes. Hanna advises Joelle to be direct with Ashley and not let her take over everything because some mother-in-laws are like that. Mine is not. My mother-in-law is amazing and wonderful. Now, Hannah's not given up on the antifreeze. She just said she used it on the wrong person. Does anyone else feel like we need to call the police? At this point, I was thinking she's going to put Joelle, and I was hoping, like I often am, that I was wrong. And I felt sick while I was reading that. So for now, it doesn't say who got the antifreeze, but in the next few pages, we find out, and drum roll, please, it's herself. Hanna is herself. Lord have mercy, and I gotta say, I was relieved. Now, Hannah is describing the effects of what this was like, and it honestly sounds a lot like my experience with back when I had dental surgery. It was the craziest thing. Like, I took them and then I got tired, so I went to lay down. So I'm laying on my couch and it felt like I was floating, like up, and I was no longer in my body. Enough that I called my husband while he was at work and I was like, "You need to come home." And he's like, "Why do I need to come home? What's wrong?" "I'm going to die." And he laughs and he goes, "You are not going to die. You're going to be fine." As the day kind of wore on, I did start to feel fine. Um, I didn't take any more of those though, and I will never take those ever again as long as I live. So, Hannah decides to just go to work, showing up looking terrible, partly because she wanted to make her boss feel bad because she didn't believe Hannah when Hannah said she was sick. So she poisons herself. Anywho, the day progresses and she just gets worse and worse and worse, and her boss ends up calling Jacob to come and pick her up. She's starting to wonder, did I give myself too much? Did I give myself a full dose? And did I give the second dose too soon? And now that she knows what her faking sick should look like, she's going to continue faking sick for a while. And so Hannah's being fussed over. Boyd says that she should see a doctor because Ashley, who also got the antifreeze cocktail, had some kidney issues. I meant to Google that about antifreeze, but of course I completely forgot.
Symptoms of antifreeze poisoning can include, but are not limited to, headache, fatigue, lack of coordination, grogginess, slurred speech, nausea, vomiting, rapid breathing and inability to urinate, rapid heartbeat, convulsions, coma, and...
Hannah did not like them talking about her to Ashley, and she just brushes it off. "I'm not Ashley. I'm going to be fine," is what she says. And she does talk about she's worried that she may have given herself some kind of long-term problem because her mother had Crohn's disease. And Hannah always saw that as her mother being pathetic and weak. Autoimmune diseases do not make someone weak or pathetic, Hannah. Fussing over Hannah and making her the center of attention. And I'm thinking, and I would suspect that Hannah is too, that married life just isn't for her. So while Hannah's trying to clear her mind, doing a little bit of cleaning, she's looking through a closet in her studio and she finds a set of pastels that Jacob had bought her. So part of the way Hannah copes is she does like to draw, and she likes to draw foxes, which is our lovely little guy here on this cover. But she does everything in charcoals and black and white. But she talks about just having the pastels in the container as they were to her. That in its own just looks like art, and using them would ruin the art of them just being a full and complete set. She also talked about how her mother would buy her art supplies, and her mother just seemed upset and mad that she never used them, but wasn't really able to articulate how she felt about them. And I felt that because I too have trouble articulating thoughts sometimes. Like, in my head, the connections make perfect sense. Maybe to others, they probably don't. So before I sit down to film a video, I actually will read through my script like multiple times. I read through this one for like 2 weeks. Sometimes I'll ask my husband to read it to make sure I don't need to clarify anything. Might make perfect sense to me, but might not to you, dear audience. So she's decided she's going to dose herself again. Just enough to be the center of attention again. So she's gone through, she's checked the whole house. She thought she was alone, poured herself a crispy Diet Pepsi, carefully measuring out her antifreeze, and Jacob caught her. He was there the entire time, and the confrontation that has been looming finally happens. And what is Hannah's excuse that she finally comes up with all of this? "I was overwhelmed." Girl, I stay overwhelmed, but never once did I thought to somebody or myself. Jacob straight up accuses her of Ashley. She said it was to protect the family because Ashley was trying to take over Joelle and the baby's life. Jacob's having none of it. Good man. He even asks, should I call the police? Which obviously you should. Your wife just told you she tried to kill somebody. So Jacob decides to leave. He's just going to go to work, try to think about what he's going to do with Hannah. Like, I'm not sure what I would do if I walked in on my spouse trying to Munchausen themselves. I just don't think I would have the mental space to just go to work and pretend that it's not happening. But I do feel like that would probably have gone something like this.
What are you doing?
I didn't know you were home. I thought you were gone.
Is that a bottle of antifreeze?
No.
Sure?
Yeah, no, it's not.
It looked like it said antifreeze on it.
No, that's not what this is.
Oh. It's all over your mouth.
Kool-Aid. It's Kool-Aid. I was thirsty.
Oh. Did you save me some?
No, it's gone. I drank it all. So Jacob has come home from work and Hannah's like, hey, let's talk this through. We can work it out. This is specifically a Hannah problem. So Jacob decides, I'm just going to sleep in the studio. We'll talk tomorrow at noon. That is very specific. So my thought was, he's made an appointment with a divorce attorney, going to tell no one, just get the papers filed, get Hannah out of their life. He still should call the police because she'll just do this again to someone else. Because at this point, I don't think she can help herself. Now, on the other hand, what if he's already spoken to police and it needs to be specific because he's going to like wear a wire or something? So it's the next day, Hannah's waiting. Jacob comes home, says it'll be a few more minutes. And I kid you not, she looks this man dead in his face and asks him if he wants her to get him something to drink. Hanna, come on. He said he'll fix it himself. Wise choice given what we know. Doorbell rings. It's her parents. Jacob called Hannah's parents, Alex and Suzette, the same Suzette she tried to kill in baby teeth. Hanna was blindsided. I wasn't expecting that either. She hasn't spoken to her parents since she and Jacob got married. So essentially, Jacob just called a family meeting because he says he does not want to give up on Hanna. Like, this man is a saint. Because if my husband caught me trying to hurt someone or myself, I'd be driven straight to the hospital for an evaluation. So Jacob is about to find out about Hannah's past. Biggest thing, of course, as we know right now, is her stay at Marcia's. They tell Jacob that Marcia's wasn't a boarding school. It was a facility for disturbed children. Every time she mentions Marcia's, I keep going back to that scene in Baby Teeth with the little boy and the helmet when Hanna was left alone with him, and that was very disturbing. So Jacob is absorbing all of this new information because Hanna has always called it a boarding school, citing potato. Hanna. She just also sees this as her love being obsessive and her attempts to protect her family misguided. Not liking your child's future mother-in-law is not a situation that needs to even have in the equation, Hanna. I would say that I obsessively love my husband like I would live in his pocket if I could. And that's just because I have protected my peace, that he's one of two friends that I have. Shout out Morgan. What's up, bestie? So Jacob brought up Goose. Alex stopped the conversation. We're about to get an avalanche of information and emotion, so let's all take a breath together. And I was death gripping the book at this point, and Suzette says, "You told him Gustav was alive?" My hand went to my mouth because I was shocked. Like, what is happening? So, Hanna was babysitting. I think they said Goose was 6 when this happened. And Hanna had helped him make his own underslumber bumblebeast. Hanna had one that she made with her parents that she named Skog, and she still has him. and she didn't want let Goose play with him, so she decided, we're just going to make you one on your own. Now, Underslumber Bumblebeast was a book that Hanna really loved as a kid, and she was wanting to share that with Goose. So after they made it, he's playing with it, he gets a little hyperactive. Hanna left him alone to calm himself down, and so that she could also keep herself from getting overwhelmed. While he was alone, he chewed a button off of the toy and he choked to death. Let's sit with that for a second. Should Hanna have left him alone? No. Did she do that on purpose? Also, no. It was an accident. Did she call 911 and try to save him? Yes. And as horrible as Hanna is, I did feel a little bit of sympathy here for her. I don't think it's fair to say that she killed her brother because it's not something she set up or planned or did on purpose. I think she really did love Goose, and I don't think that she wanted to kill him. I just think it was a tragic accident, and her dad, Alex, thinks the same thing. So Suzette storms off. Alex does stay back a little bit to talk to Hanna and Jacob, but when they leave, Jacob explodes and goes straight for the vodka in the freezer. Obviously, Jacob wants to know everything. She tells him not much about Marcia's, but we do find out that she started writing the letters to Goose as kind of a way to process her grief. I did something like that when my Papa Sizemore for a time. The family graveyard was like right next to my house, so I would go out there and talk to him, tell him how I was doing, tell him about my day, but that only lasted for like a month or so, and I didn't even do it every day. So anyway, she's saying they both should go to Dr. Yamamoto. She keeps saying things like us and we and both. Hanna, this is specifically a you problem. Jacob kicks her out. Says if she leaves, moves somewhere outside of this city so they never see her again, he won't turn her in. She asks if she can write a letter to Joelle, talks about the hole that it left in her when her and her dad drove away from her at Marcia's, and she doesn't want to have Joelle left with a hole in her. She says to Jacob, because I love her, but then says to herself, more than I ever loved you. He does let Hanna speak to Joelle before leaving, and I don't know what they told her. It didn't specify. I guess this just isn't working out. So she moves away, and from what I can gather, it's like across the river from where they were. And so she's living there, new job, divorce in the works, and Goose, who we now know is just not really Goose, is Hanna, encourages her to seek out someone without kids. I think Hanna should just be by herself, and that would probably be best for everyone. This was such a great read. Zoje Stage is probably right there on one of my top 5 authors ever. So like I said, you could start with Dear Hanna, you could start with Baby Teeth, or you could read one or the other and not both. It really does not matter. They're not codependent on each other. I do highly recommend reading them both, though. This story was like standing on the edge of a cliff with Hanna standing behind you, knowing that she was going to push you, but you had no idea when it was coming. And when it happened, oh boy, did it happen. And if this sounds like something you'd like, go ahead and give it a read. And of course, always remember that reviews are subjective and the only opinion that really matters is your own. So, here's some great news as far as the channel. You can now support me on Patreon. Videos are going to go up there 1 week earlier than they go live on YouTube, and they're also going to be uncensored. At the time of writing this script, I was still in the process of getting everything uploaded, but everything should be there now. The only 2 videos that I do not have uncensored versions is for The Likeness and The Last House on Needless Street, which The Likeness, I filmed that over 2 years ago. So none of this was ever even on the table when I filmed those. And we'll just kind of add more fun things as the audience grows. I was also thinking maybe doing some Patreon exclusive merch, but we'll kind of cross that bridge when we get there. Just see what happens with this. If you want to follow me on my other socials, now including Patreon, the link's going to be in the description. I'm also going to put a link down there to Zoje Stage's website if you'd like to keep up with her as well. And of course, there you can also find the link on Amazon to buy my book, which is, well, this camera thing is reversed. It's right there behind me. All right. So that's all I got. Thank you guys so much for being here. I love you all so much, and God bless.